To introduce Flutterwave, please welcome CEO and Chief Investment Officer at West Rock Asset Management, Scott Ford.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, Gary. I think they got a seat for you right down here somewhere. Like a lot of you, I'm a former Altel employee. I went off and started a coffee company in '09 and then an asset management business. You're going to get to hear, though, today from Ian Alua, who is a serial entrepreneur from Africa. He's raised in Nigeria, went to school here in North America. This is his second startup. The first one is related to engineering students in Africa. They go to work for Google, FaceTime, Facebook, etc. He's had 40,000 that have applied. He's trained 200 of them. They work for him for 6 months. They get a job. Africa is a booming economy, and the connecting U.S. citizens and African citizens in the ease of commerce is what his next startup is about, called Flutterwave, and you are in for a treat.
Hi, everyone. My name is E, and I am CEO of Flutterwave. And at Flutterwave, we are building modern infrastructure for Africa in the payment space. Africa is a $760 billion payments market, and it's growing 70% every year. It's the largest of its kind. And it is the last stand for payments across the world. In every other market, and the FIS people here can bear me witness, there is already a large player. But in Africa, all the opportunity remains. And what's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, I'm sure many of you went to a coffee shop this morning and you swiped a card without giving it too much of a thought. I mean, if there is money in the account, transaction is going to go through, right? Well, in Africa, whenever I put my card in that pin and chip, I got to pray I'm not going to get embarrassed. Because more often than not, that transaction fails. It simply doesn't work. And the trouble is not just that the transaction fails and that 80% of merchants have basically said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to use this machine anymore. It's that it's also insecure. And that banks are losing $22 million in 1 year, in one country, because of how insecure it is. And that most of the infrastructure that exists today, because it was literally just imported from North America, is card-focused. Meanwhile, the majority of the population, as you might know, doesn't have bank accounts and doesn't have cards. They use mobile money to pay. And the infrastructure does not cater to those payment forms. And most importantly, this entire payment system is disconnected from the global economy. There are $135 billion coming into Africa every year, and another $6.5 billion in Pan-African trade, completely disconnected from the digital payments ecosystem. And you know what the consequence is? Cash. Cash is king. The trouble with cash, really, and I have no problem with cash, I love cash, but the problem with cash is that African currencies are so low value that many times, and this is going to sound really ridiculous, the value, the face value of the currency is less than how much it costs to print it. So imagine your $1 coin costing $10. That would be ridiculous, right? And that costs Africa real money, $56 billion every year, 1.5% of its GDP. And I put this graph up there just to give you a sense of how a half-baked electronic payment infrastructure accentuates the problem. That is a graph of digital payments across Nigeria divided by channel. And what you see over there in that red line is cash withdrawals from the ATM. People are going to the ATM, withdrawing cash because the infrastructure, some kind of infrastructure is there, far above and beyond what they're putting in POS payments and mobile payments and every other kind of payments. This is a problem. And that's why we exist. Flutterwave is an API, an infrastructure for enabling anyone to get paid and to pay across Africa. We have built the only seamless and secure payments infrastructure for payments in Africa. and we control the entire transaction end to end, from payment processing and gateway APIs to risk management and making sure we don't have terrorists or dictators moving money around, all the way to the settlement so that global businesses can do business in Africa without wringing their hands. So what does that infrastructure look like? Well, the customer can walk into any store powered by Flutterwave's infrastructure and pay however and with whatever form of payment they want, whether that is card payments or alternative payment methods. And then we directly connect to all these payment forms to ensure one seamless system without too many points of failure for ensuring the transaction gets through. And most importantly, we're able to do this because we partner with some of the largest banks in Africa to ensure that anywhere in Africa, people can pay and get paid. Now, when we came to Little Rock in May, we didn't have very much of a business. I mean, I've built a business before, but had to start from scratch this time. And in that period of time, thanks very much to VCFinTech and all the amazing help and advice we've gotten, we've grown our business. As of now, we are processing over $23 million in transactions across 120 bank accounts and mobile money wallets. This has only been possible really because of the help and support we've gotten. I want to put a spotlight on some of our partners and clients without whom we wouldn't be here today. We work for the famous Uber. We enable them to create thousands of jobs in Nigeria and across Africa, and we enable them to process millions of dollars in transactions every quarter. We're a huge part of their success story in Africa, and we want to do the same for many more businesses. And I guess we should say a little bit about, some of what our clients are saying about us, because that's what really matters. And they've called us the leaders of payments in Africa and the secret weapon. Because we're not out there like other startups, making a lot of noise about what we do for our people. We work for our clients. We help them become successful in the background. Now, I know you're probably wondering, this is Africa, what's going on? I'm not sure whether there's a Nigerian prince somewhere. I'm not wearing anything like that, but... and we got you covered, because we understand. We've got military-grade data encryption that makes sure that from end to end, the data is completely secure. We're PCI DSS compliant, and we do it with the top partner in the entire space, TrustWave. And our CTO is actually a qualified security assessor, one of the few in Africa. We provide two-factor authentication for every transaction, and once we feel like something is suspicious is going on, we're going to ask you to make sure we know who you are. And most importantly, we have the ability to help law enforcement and banks, central banks, to monitor where the money is going to make sure that money stays out of the hands of terrorists and dictators. What's our business model? Well, our business model is that we succeed when our clients succeed. Instead of charging huge million-dollar infrastructure and technology to the client, we take a fixed monthly fee and a percentage of transactions. And that's how we've been building our business and our clients' business so that we are aligned. Now we've established there's a business here, I want to talk about growth, because that's what matters. What is driving growth in payments in Africa? Well, it's not just the fact that we just started. It's also the fact that we've got M-Pesa, which is the world's largest mobile money transfer network. And we've got e-commerce exploding across Africa with $2 billion companies in this space. And we've got central banks and governments saying, we need more transparency about how money is moving around. We want to know who's paying who and why, and whether they deserve to be paid, or whether they would harm us with the money that they're receiving. And most importantly, we've got a youthful population, the world's youngest population, that is willing to try new technology and leapfrog technology. And just to give you the numbers, over the last 3 years, in Nigeria alone, the payment space has doubled to over $800 million. We're talking scale here. This is not small potatoes. And of course, in a highly growing market, we will have competition. We welcome it. But one thing that distinguishes us from the competition is that we are the only ones with modern payments infrastructure that is connected to the global economy. The current market leader, huge valuation, but not as good technology as we have. And the global players don't understand Africa and don't understand you cannot succeed with a card-focused strategy in Africa. You need to go local. And that's why we're going to make a lot of money. Well, I've made money before, so I know how to do that. And we already are a profitable company. We've got booked revenues getting close to $200,000, and we're spending within our means. And well, over the next 3 years, we're going to make $13.4 million in gross profits. Now, what we did to make this possible was that we brought together the naval seal of payments in Africa. This is literally the best team you can possibly put together. My co-founder and CTO, super experienced guy, holds a couple payment patents for Africa and has been at Google Wallet and PayPal, as well as some of Africa's largest banks. And my other co-founder, ACA, who's somewhere in the crowd over there, you can catch him at our table, is the regulator. He wrote the rules for digital payments across Africa. And my humble self, I have a track record of helping US businesses be successful in Africa, and I built Andela from 0 to 300 people in 2 years and a $100 million valuation, and raised money from Mark Zuckerberg and Google to do so. We also have an impressive role of investors, from VCFinTech to Y Combinator, which produce startups like Stripe and Dropbox. So we're not alone. And we've worked with some of the best folks in the fintech business, from Daniel Marlowe, who's done the same thing we're trying to do in Latin America, to folks at First Data, and even to some of the largest VCs in the world. Why are we doing this? Now, we know we're going to make money, and this is not about the money. Africans need to be connected to the global economy so the world can be safe. We cannot have 1 billion of the world's youngest population without economic opportunity. That is a world that is going to boil over. And what we are doing is taking financial access and inclusion to the last stand. We want to connect Africa to the global economy. And if you're excited about that opportunity and you want to support us in doing so, well, I invite you to come talk to us over at the back. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day.